If I asked you right now in one sentence to say who your nonprofit helps and how you help them, could you do it? I don't know about you, but for most of my career, that one sentence that we did from a mission retreat back in the day that got stuffed on a shelf ended up turning into 3 paragraphs, 8 programs, 15-slide deck that takes me 40 minutes to explain to a donor. And by the time I'm at the end of the presentation, they're already lost. I've learned the hard way that you can confuse donors, and if you do, you will lose them. I work with nonprofits now to clarify the words that they use to get donors to engage and to give. And most nonprofits that work with me start with things like elite level player development infrastructure, capacity building solutions, jargon that you and I we use all the time, but donors don't understand. It's not that we've done anything wrong, it's that we need to clarify the words we use. I have a framework that I've built with donor psychology research, grassroots giving, and working with dozens of nonprofits that I'm going to teach you over the next 15 minutes. By the end of this video, you're going to watch those tools take shape over the course of a real nonprofit example that I give you, a client that I helped go from messy and confusing to simple and energizing. And I'm going to give you everything so that you can do it for your organization for free. And I'm even at the very end going to tell you how I can review the work that you do for free. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Quick who I am, and then we're off. My name is Nate Hilpert, and I am the founder of the Nonprofit Turnaround. I've been a fundraiser for over a decade. I've raised $3 million in grassroots giving from over 3,000 direct-to-donor asks. And since then, I've conducted over $100 million of donor psychology interviews with major donors. And I've packaged all of that into this framework that I now teach to a bunch of different nonprofits. It works for them in their fundraising, and clarity as a principle moves dollars. So everything that we're teaching today has been implemented in my fundraising, but also in the fundraising of many other nonprofits. I'm excited for you to get it because this one sentence is going to change every single conversation you have with donors from here on out, and it will continue to provide value for you and your nonprofit for years to come. Here's the thing that nobody tells nonprofit leaders. Donors don't buy your programs. They buy the problem you solve and the way that you solve it. That's it. Everything between people coming into your organization with a difficulty in their life and them coming out of your organization with their problem solved is called the big black box. This is a very simple diagram that shows that a problem comes into your organization, something happens inside of this big black box, and out comes lives changed. That's actually the way that donors process the work that your nonprofit does. It's not that they're dumb, it's that they have tons of requests. They only interface with your organization 2 times, when you ask them to give and when you tell them what it did. And so they have a much less insider look into what happens at our nonprofits. And so it means that we have to keep things simple. One of the metaphors that really helped me understand this is to think about a donor as someone walking into a grocery store and there being 2 different salesmen who stand to them at the meat aisle. One of them is a salesman that says, "We have the most incredible factory. We produce the highest quality sausages in all of our city. We source our meat from grass-fed cows. We have incredibly passionate employees in our assembly line. You would be so impressed by their passion, their devotion to their work. Our operations are so efficient. We can pump out so many sausages per day. It would blow your mind. Our factory is incredible." And then next to them is another salesman who talks to the hungry customer and says, "I have a steaming hot dog. Would you like one?" Which one of those 2 vendors the hungry consumer going to buy from? That's what fundraising often feels like when we spend all of our time focused on the black box and not on the thing the donor is really here to buy, which is life change in a problem that they care about. One story from my donor psychology interviews that really stood out to me was a gal who is incredibly savvy, knows how to pull annual reports and strategic plans and 990s, and is on giving collectives and has her own DAF and has given over $1 million and considers it the major thrust of her intentionality in life. And I asked her what her favorite cause to give to was, and it shocked me. She said that it gives beds to people who need them. And that's it. She said, because it's so simple, I understand exactly what my money is doing. When donors can repeat your story to themselves, they're able to experience your nonprofit between the times that you talk to them. They're able to say it to their coworkers, their families, their friends when they're talking about things that they care about and are passionate about. They're able to embody and repeat the story that we live. That's why understanding the way that donors think and the way that they choose who to give to matters so much when we're forming the words we use to describe our organizations. This is one of the clients that I had who came to me trying to find clearer words to explain what they do to their donors. And one of the things that's fantastic about what they did is that they had men's sexual addiction recovery in an incredibly wide berth. They were able to provide programming for up to 7 years, which aligned with what research says is how long recovery from addiction takes. And they tried to describe it to donors in the individual components. They had 8 different programs that they would try to regurgitate to donors to explain the breadth of their programming. And one of the things that's very obvious is that donors aren't going to be able to recollect or repeat that level of detail. And so usually what ends up happening is that we lose the forest for all of the individual trees. And so when we talk about a black box model, we don't have 8 programs, we have to have one. It's one black box. It's about the problem and the solution far more than it is about the black box. And so the easier it is to understand and repeat, the easier it is for donors to comprehend and to give. So we were able to create language around one program, one continuous recovery program. That's one of the ways that the black box can take shape. I want to take you through a process that I went through with an organization called the Isabel Blanche Foundation. This is their before how we would explain what we do statement. The Isabel Blanche Foundation exists to bring hope, comfort, and practical support to pediatric families and bereaved parents through compassionate financial assistance and meaningful keepsakes that honor the lives of their children. All of this is true, and this is typically how we describe the black box when we are nonprofits. The problem is that there's too many words. It's not clear enough to donors. Hope, comfort, and practical support doesn't create an immediate picture of what it is that you're doing. Pediatric families and bereaved parents, I know what it means because I've sat in this message for a while, but on first glance, if you don't know that we're talking about parents who have had a child pass, then you don't immediately have a picture come to your mind. It feels very technical and it isn't instantly clear. Compassionate financial assistance and meaningful keepsakes. Again, those are really long and big words to describe something that's very simple. We give money and jewelry. And so this initial statement was something that did not fully bring that picture, that repeatable picture to a donor's mind. Now, how do you take words like this and make them into something that donors will buy? There are 3 very simple questions that I walk clients through, and it's who does your nonprofit exist to help? What problem do they face? And what does your nonprofit do to solve it? Now, don't be underwhelmed by the simplicity of these things. Remember that clarity and simplicity are actually harder to reach than it is to be confusing and complex. And so, what we want to do is we want to journal about each of these questions, and I'll have a worksheet below this video that after you're done watching this, you can fill out and use to process as a processing space. But you want to journal these out, and then in each of these sections, you'll compress them down to one sentence each. So, who does your nonprofit exist to help? For Isabel Blanche Foundation, it was very clear. It's parents who have lost a child. What problem do they face? They face grief, they face. I mean, she actually described a lot of it to me as parents who are in the NICU for weeks and months on end, disrupting their job cycles, their life cycles. They're disconnected from their support network because they're constantly driving to and from the hospital. They sometimes have other kids and trying to manage their life, and yet they have to be here to have time with their children, or their child that they have heard does not have long to live. And so they're trying to live their life and balance all of this crazy emotions and grief while all of this is happening. But fundamentally, what they face is they face grief and isolation and financial hardship because it puts burden on their work and it puts burden on their families. And then what does their nonprofit do to solve it? What does your nonprofit do to solve the problem that the people you're serving faces? And so for this organization, they provide money to help ease the burden on groceries. If a parent is not able to go to work because they're constantly in the hospital, it provides some sense of stability and support, but it also transmits meaning and care when someone receives a gift like that. But they also do legacy jewelry. They create keepsakes, right? They create pieces of jewelry with that child's name on it to say that while they might have passed, like their name is remembered and they're with you. And so those are the two things that they do to solve that problem. Now it's really important. We could put a lot of words into everything that we do, everything that we explain, but we always have to compress it back down to a single sentence, to the simplest version. If you watch The Office, we have to imagine Michael Scott asking someone to explain the accounting or the complex business situation to him. I need you to explain it to me like I'm five. And so this is the format. This is what compressing it down to one sentence looks like. We help blank people who face blank problem by blank solution. If we can compress it down to that one sentence, it makes it so much easier for a donor to grasp and repeat. So here's what it looks like after for the Isabel Blanche Foundation. We help families who face child loss by providing financial grants and legacy jewelry. And that's it. To be able to say to a donor something that quick, that simple, and that clear is profound. So when you compare the before and the after, there is something that really sticks out to a donor about the clarity between something that is very jargon heavy, very technical, and while still true and potentially more operationally sophisticated, isn't easy enough for them to remember and to repeat it to themselves. The second thing that we need to do after we're able to explain what it is we do, who we help, the problem that they're facing, and how we solve it in one sentence, the next thing we need to be able to describe in one sentence is what their money does, how their money plays a part in that story. And so this goes back to the black box, right? Because there's all sorts of different ways that we can chop up our program. We can do our program admin fundraising breakdowns. We can then break it down between the multiple programs that we report on our 990. We can break it down by units. We can split out our staff time between program admin and fundraising. We can get really nuanced in terms of like how much money goes to actual people. And at the end of the day, if we keep the black box methodology and we say that whatever comes into the org and then goes out of the org, those are the numbers that we're going to use. It helps make things much simpler to report to donors and much simpler for them to understand. So the two questions that we use for this particular statement is, what does it cost to do the work, and how many people does that help? So here are a few examples just to make that very concrete. Example one, all of these are clients. One has a $4 million annual budget. In 1 year, that's 1 year, they have 4,000 kids that they get ready for school. So it's $1,000 a kid. You see top level budget, top level impact, 1 X equals Y statement. Client two, much smaller. They have $70,000 annual budget. They have 60 men in recovery. It's $1,200 per man. Very simple. And then the third one, this is the Isabel Blanche Foundation. They had a $0 budget, but they were getting funding for a pilot program. And so the pilot had a budget, an aspiration of helping 5 families with $10,000, give $2,000 per family a financial grant. And so you can come up with an X equals Y statement regardless of where you're at in your organization's life cycle, just using top level numbers, the top level impact to create a very simple X equals Y statement. Now, when you piece it together inside of what I call a 5-sentence ask. When you're sitting in front of a donor, when you're on a fundraising call, and you aren't just saying one sentence, you're trying to make it conversational. Here are the 5 sentences that I coach clients to use. We say, why I'm calling, which is where you put that first sentence we created. I'm calling because I'm raising money to help parents who have lost their children through financial assistance and legacy jewelry. Very clear. For me, why I care about this. I care about this because I have lost a child. For you, I thought about you because I know that you know what that pain was like because you walked with me. For them, this is where the X equals Y statement comes in. $2,000 helps one family receive a financial grant and legacy jewelry to help them through the worst season of their life. Direct ask, will you give $2,000 today? Super, super simple. And that's what it looked like for the Isabel Blanche Foundation. What's particularly cool is that it works. This is Jenny, the founder of Isabel Blanche Foundation, on her very first fundraising call after getting her 5-sentence ask. This is what happened. Jenny, talk to me. How'd it go?
Yeah, I just got a pledge for $2,000.
Let's freaking go, dude. Come on.
It was pretty exciting. It made me a little weepy. I might cry a little bit.
Tell us more. Come on.
Well, it's my good friend who knows my personal journey, and he owns a wellness company. He's a doctor, and he just said he had been looking for ways to reach back to the community because he has been doing so well in his business. And so he pledged immediately. Boom.
So good. Fundraising can be very simple and it can be very effective when we have words that get donors engaged and makes them want to give. Getting to that level of clarity, I recognize, I spent over 10 years of my career with fumbly words. And so I know what it's like to try to reach clarity. And sometimes even after receiving this information, it can be really hard to get to that level of clarity. This is actually someone who went through this exercise, did the 3 questions, tried to compress it down into one statement. And sometimes it's just hard to describe our own stuff in words that are very simple. And so if that's you and you go through this exercise and you feel a little bit lost, that's actually why I built this last step of our process, which is for you to fill out the worksheet that's below this video, and I will review your work and I will take 30 minutes to sit down with you. I will help you get it down to a level of clarity that you can use immediately in front of another donor and get the fundraising results that you need for your organization. So don't wait. Don't take this information and let it pass you over and click on to the next thing. It really does take for a very first pass. Don't make it perfect. Just get the next version. Click on the link below. It takes 5 minutes to fill out. Book a time with me, and then I'll help you get it across the line. I'm excited for the work that you're doing in the world. I'm excited for donors to understand it, to see it, and to give to it. So let's get your clear words together.